Welcome to Season 1 of the Secret World of Events, where real event planners and the UK's top suppliers share their tips and tricks for surviving and thriving in this one-of-a-kind industry. Hosted by me, Gavin Alexander, I'm the creative director at the award-winning team that is Gavsy Media. Each episode, we'll have a special guest from the UK's leading event specialists, and in turn, they've invited some event friends to join along in the chat. You'll hear guests share their secrets on how to create a successful event, the do's and do nots of organising a party, the client experience, finding creativity, thinking outside the box, and you may even hear some crazy stories along the way. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Joining me today are two giants from the world of events. If you have any vague idea of the UK party planning community, then it will come as no surprise how lucky we are to grab these two for an episode. From Whitepaper Events, we have the now legendary Aron Schlagman. And from Muzika ShowBand, the always legendary Jeremy Horowitz. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
First time on a podcast.
First time on a podcast.
So scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are the pair of you?
Yeah, it's a solid 7.
It's up there. It's right up there.
Well, relax, boys. I've got you all in good hands. So great to have you with us. Obviously, I've known both of you boys for many, many years now. I've been in and around the events, but specifically, we're going to dive into both of your careers, the events world as it stands today, and basically tips, tricks, and advice we can give to those people watching the show. So I'm going to start with you, Aron, because it feels like appropriately we should. You're our special guest today, and you've invited Jeremy along. Why have you invited Jeremy along today?
Yeah, so other than last minute availability.
Yeah, you couldn't find anyone else.
But Jeremy and I actually go way back. So had this been a different scenario, we'd be sitting in a secondary school class, like literally two naughty schoolboys.
You were Hasmonean boys, weren't you?
We were Hasmonean boys.
I was afraid you were going to bring it up. But, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So we go very far back. So in the world of events where everything is collaborative in one way or another. And so I feel lucky that within that, I'm able to work with somebody who I've known for a long time and, you know, just is a friend as much as a business colleague.
And Jeremy,
I've never said anything as nice about you.
He has
ever.
never said anything.
Now you're going to have to. Now you're on the spot.
I honestly have no words to add to that. I thought he was just going to say he was lucky enough to, work with somebody he's known for a long time, and I was happy with that. When he threw in friendship as well, it's nice. But it's true. I can echo those words.
Fantastic.
My mum, in fact, to the point where my mum used to make sure.
Oh, he went there.
I know. Well, I was going to, obviously.
Your mum used
back in the day, I used to take a spare lunch to school.
For Jeremy?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It was easier than probably getting beaten up for it. So we just used to proactively go in there. As if.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Aron, where did it all start for you in events?
So actually, my story in the events world is a little bit of a different one, maybe compared to other people, in that I never had any intention whatsoever of getting into events. I actually did a plumbing apprenticeship with another good friend of Jeremy's and mine.
Sorry, just stop. Hold on. You were a plumber.
Yeah.
Did you make it? You did the apprenticeship. And
we did it, and the whole point was to go and live in Israel, which I did that as well. My dad would say I was a crappy plumber, and even now it's just not even worth getting involved in anything related to that. But that was the idea. And when I found my way back to the UK, in fact, another kudos to Jeremy in that when I came back to the UK, I was approached for, I was looking around what to do. Jeremy was actually approached for the job that I ended up having.
Yes,
and it was Jeremy that put my name forward to the company that was running the event at Kinloss, the space under the shul there.
Wow, you two really were my boys. You both got offered a job at a shul.
Yeah, and I went along. I'd never done an event ever, not a day in my nothing at all, knew anything about it, and that was it. I got thrown into it. Just the events world is a little bit such that if you're good with people, you can learn on the job, and that's exactly what I did.
And for you, Jeremy, Muzika, obviously I've just heard you kind of were up for a job in the synagogue, but where did you start in events?
Yeah. He took my job in the synagogue, which, all right, we won't talk about that. I had, a little bit more, I guess, in terms of I've always been in events as long as I've been in the my working life. Started, if I go back as far as uni, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing a degree in hotel management at Middlesex University, that bastion of academic prowess.
The one that back in the day we used to call a polytechnic.
Exactly. I'm not even sure it was a university.
Yeah. Polytechnic. I just forgot the word. So
just cling on to that university.
Yeah.
Make it sound posh.
So I went there. I did a 4-year course. It was a sandwich course. So 1 year was placement. I worked at the Westbury Hotel in London, checking people in at 1 a.m, fun things like that. And then I actually worked for a caterer, but he had a deli. Remember Steve's Deli?
Yeah,
Stanmore?
Steve's Deli in Stanmore. Yeah,
Steve's Deli in Stanmore. Yeah, Aaron remembers it for other reasons.
Yeah.
Another episode. So I was there, but I was driving a van around. I was doing all sorts of fun things that you do in a deli. And they actually went more into production, food production. They launched a company at the time, I think it was called Great Food Production. And they supplied places like Costco with ready-made kosher meals. And to be honest, the banqueting thing was where I was more interested in. And so I left there and I found a job that my mother at the time found the advert. They were looking for a kosher events manager at the Langham Hilton. At the time, it was the Langham Hilton. Today, it's the Langham London. And I had absolutely no experience other than driving a Ford Transit and delivering people's kiddish around Stanmore, which you could argue is some
all the experience you need. Yeah,
it's all the experience you need. And I was going to use the word bluffed my way in, but I think that's what it was, because I turned up for the interview and I had no experience in hotels. I had no experience in banqueting really. But I think they were so excited to find somebody that was willing to deal with Jewish clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I can remember till today that the director of banqueting handed over a pile of so high folders and he said, well, there you go, just start calling everybody. And I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, genuinely no idea what he was talking about. And that's how I got thrown in. I learned really the hard way. And I was the kosher banqueting manager at the Langham for 4 years.
Fast forwarding on to Muzika. So there was a bit between. I had a previous business called Live Events that was the events arm of the Muzika ShowBand. Yes.
I think you remember.
Yeah, I do.
And there were 3 partners in that, myself and 2 other guys. So that was after I went to the Langham. We then set up Muzika together. So we had 2 bands. We had Muzika and Gilev, and then we all went separate ways for various reasons. 3 directors, small company. We were all a bit young, a bit naive, if I'm honest. And we set up Muzika. We set up Muzika at the time to be an Israeli music offering, because we felt that the London scene of, let's call it Israeli music, was quite poor, wasn't a great standard. Started it from there, and to be honest, it's just grown. It's grown like in directions we didn't know it was going to grow, and to what it is today.
Only through hard work though, Jeremy.
Absolutely. There must be some people there that really worked hard, and I respect
whoever they are.
Yeah. Please come forward.
Aaron, coming back to you, Whitepaper, where does the name come from?
Okay, so just going back slightly after my experiences at the shul, I then felt that I needed to get into something a little bit more glam, at least I thought it was at the time. Funny, because I also bluffed my way into a hotel as well, actually.
You'll notice that there's some bluff.
Yeah, there is a lot of blanking.
Well, yeah, probably for the same reasons, but I managed to get myself a job at the Savoy, where I spent 4 years. Hello, Savoy, yeah. Special events manager rather than just straightforward kosher. But that meant that I was working on a Saturday and a Sunday and then back in on a Monday morning. So it wasn't really in any way glam.
But his Sabbath observance is questionable.
I was going to say, that must have pleased your parents.
It's questionable.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother episode.
Okay. Sharon, Jack, if you're watching.
After times at... I also spent time at the Langham, the Savoy, times in corporate banking, and then the Four Seasons. And actually, Whitepaper came about in 2011, 2012, when I looked at and just felt that creatively it was very stifling being in one venue, working on behalf of one company. And I really felt that from the event side that something a little bit different was needed in the industry. Whitepaper is a name, full credit to my wife. The name itself, that's where it came from. The premise is that every event begins with a blank piece of paper. That's the idea, which is the case in terms of how we approach things as well. But that it's nothing more simple. And the fact that with my name as it is, my actual name, I didn't feel that calling the company by my name itself, was ever really going to do anything other than leave me back in Kinloss every other week.
Okay.
So.
Now, we met in, I think, 2015 when you were given the job of planning an event that I was also involved in. I would probably say, for many reasons, a job that probably changed both of our lives.
Yes, very, very much so.
It's now kind of iconic, I would say, amongst certainly your portfolio as a sort of a proper starting point into the bigger side of things. I mean, just talk me through. By the way, kudos to Blake Ezra, because these images came from Blake.
Yeah.
But talk us through the story of this.
Okay, so this was, you're very right. This was, and credit to you, I guess. You and I had met. And actually, you are the person that kindly put me forward to the client for this particular job at a time when, although we knew each other,
I am going to tell you they did turn down 2 others first.
Okay, fine.
You were third.
All right, but I don't care about that. But actually, going back to a different point, this was the event, I think, like you said, that put us on the map. But it was also probably one of any number of different occasions that people underestimated our ability to pull off an event like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we strive on, that idea that people, for whatever reason,
beautiful flowers. Rob Van
Helden indeed did an amazing job. And the idea here, this was in the same way as we approach most themed event. It was a take on the Alice in Wonderland concept, but with our own twist to it. For any of you that wouldn't be able to recognise the venue just by looking at these pictures, it's the Claridge's Hotel in London. Again, one of the most iconic and amazing venues to have the opportunity to work in. And here we just really transformed the space. Everything from rooms that smelt different, the flowers designed to look like the ice creams, live actors and actresses that were involved through the process, canapes that we designed the canapé trays to work in conjunction with the theme, and really an event, as you say, that was an opportunity for us to show what we could do creatively, whilst also really building trust with a client that we'd never worked with before, which is, again, something we
I have to say, it was a sensational party. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Jeremy, in terms of bands and music, I know what I think stands you apart, but what would you say stands you apart from, yourself to other bands that people may choose for their parties?
I think in what we do, if I'm very honest, I don't think it's rocket science. I mean, I think it's a quality control is at the beginning and end of absolutely everything we do. So it's very cliche to say that. I can chuck words like we're very bespoke. We are, because we try to reinvent ourselves.
You're very polished.
All the time. We're very polished.
Yeah.
I think simply we have a clientele that are very demanding. We're dealing with a lot of high net worth individuals internationally. And the thing is that they're all coming from different backgrounds. So we could talk today, for example, about the Northwest London type of high-end Jewish event, but I can quite as easily talk about, Russian oligarch events that we've been involved in, and so on and so forth. And I think the one thing that ties a lot of them together is that they're looking for perfection, but not just in the music. A lot of people don't, they might not be able to tell the difference between a great bass player and an average bass player. So the starting point is great quality, but then I think you've got to take that all the way through everything, whether it's costumes, whether it's sound systems, whether it's how you run an event. So we try to analyze the events very, very closely in terms of peak times, what to do, when to do. So I think it's quality all the way through, but it's very difficult to pinpoint one specific thing. I mean, if you can, like you said earlier, then let me know.
Yeah, no.
People do ask us. I'll be honest. People ask us a lot. It's obvious where we are pitched at the market. We are, we're fully aware of other people's pricing and where we sit within that market. So obviously people do ask that question quite often, and I do struggle to answer because, number one, I don't get to see the competition.
I do.
You do. So, well,
so do I.
You're very polished.
Yeah. So,
you're very polished.
People say that we're very polished. People say it's very glamorous, and everything is done to a higher level. But
what I would say is, I often dismiss the fact that I'm at so many events in a year, and we're very lucky because let's put it out there and say our clients generally have healthy budgets at whatever level, where they might have to pull back in certain places, but healthy enough to make the rooms look amazing with both your creativities to put that together. And what I have noticed sort of over the last couple of years is as bands progress, as their production picks up a little bit, it all helps to add.
There's a huge amount of synergy there, which is why, if I'm very honest, we love working with Aron at Whitepaper. I'm not just saying because he's sitting next to me. It's a genuine, I mean, I am a bit, obviously. No, because people listen with their eyes. I'm a very big believer in that. So to your average person who comes in, before they've even heard a note, when they see the type of productions and the type of set designs and lighting rigs that are synonymous with Whitepaper, and hopefully with Muzika as well.
Yeah,
it's you've won half the battle before you start.
But you don't just take care of Muzika. You also do production as well on occasion. So how does that fit? So you work with a planner. You're a band, but you're both competing in some cases for the same space. Sometimes there's a caterer who wants to take care of it.
Yeah.
Who decides who does what? How does it work?
Well, I don't know if there's a blanket written rule. On occasions where we're not involved in the event, then you couldn't be in better hands than Jeremy and the team to address that. They're almost the next team down, as it were, not down in a bad way, but down in terms of those people that I would, if you were asking me as an event planner, that I would put that element of the event in their hands. And I mean by that, there are plenty of other people. You referenced it just now, be they caterers or not photographers necessarily, but caterers, or specifically, I guess, in a way that they would like to handle more of the bigger picture. But the obvious people to be linked into sound, light, and look and feel of the room, if somebody like us are not involved, is going to be the band. And Jeremy and I have worked on a number of events, and if there's an instance where we're involved, he knows he's in good hands to be able to know that we're going to do hopefully an amazing job. But ultimately, that's again where from our side, it's super important to us what's going to make the band look good. So for us, we look at the entire picture as one big giant story, a jigsaw puzzle, however you want to describe it, that we're bringing together. Part of that is the band. So it's not about, it's never about what we want. Let's put the client over and above everything else. But it'd be silly to make a room look lovely if you're not accounting for what Jeremy and the team would need.
Well, actually, I'm going to flip side that and say I would absolutely agree that when Jeremy does production, for me, the entire room is beautifully lit. There is obviously emphasis on the band, but I will say this is, it's the secrets behind events. There are certainly a couple of bands that we work with who, when you go into the room, they're just interested in lighting the band. Yeah. The room looks extremely poor. Yeah. They're extremely difficult to work with. Yeah. And with you guys, I guess we see you a lot throughout the years, but you're across the whole event. Your focus is the whole event, not just the band.
I think it's about two things here. First of all, it's about the background. Don't forget, my background is not running a band. I'm not, before I did this, and I'm not a musician myself. Therefore, the focus is different. Whilst on one hand, I'm trying to ensure that the performance of the band is top notch. I've got people around me that allow for that. And my interest has always been the look and feel of the space. So whilst I don't do a full service planning such as Whitepaper, and that does differentiate us because there are many events where they just simply don't have planners. And for us, we see it as it's not even a financial side. There's a financial gain, obviously, to also offering production services, but it's more about control. Because if there isn't a planner, or there's a planner who isn't of a certain level, we know that we may end up in trouble, be it through staging, be it through lighting, be it through ill thought out floor plans. And it has a negative impact on us, which means it makes our job that bit harder to do, which then has a negative impact on the entire event. So we step in there to say, to offer our expertise, not just as a financial incentive for us, but also as to increase the level of the event. Yeah. But certainly when we've got a planner involved on a level, and I say on a level that's very specific, because there's a lot of planners out there that really, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that call themselves planners. Let's put it that way. They're just not.
It's also important to understand what a planner does.
Correct.
Yeah. So from our perspective, and again, like there are various different levels, right? So on the one hand, at one extreme, you will have, and again, there is no disrespect to anyone who works in these particular ways, right? So it's not about that. But on the one hand, which is something we don't do, There are people who will work only on the day of the event. So in essence, they've had nothing to do with the planning.
They're just
of
brought
every
in.
They're
to make sure-
coordinators. I call them coordinators,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
But the problem is these guys do often market themselves as planners, and it's very confusing for the market, especially when you have caterers and so on and so forth, and lots of people that are all planners. The English market, I would say, and particularly the Jewish English market, is a bit of a hodgepodge of who does what. I think you know that as much as anybody else. And
and that goes through to people such as ourselves that will handle every single element. And in part, that's the venue finding, that's the sourcing of relevant suppliers. It's the biggest details, the tiny details, which includes, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint the tiniest thing, be that the remembering the clips that go in the couple.
But the word is detail.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
correct.
the important
so
part.
Going back actually to what you were saying before, you're asking me as a planner in relation to the bands that we've worked with, all of whom to a point will all do the same job and do that job amazingly. Be it the polished, but touching on what you literally just said, that detail that Muzika and Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into to ensure the success of the event in relation to their part, which again, by definition, makes our life easier from the big picture, is one of those points of difference.
Do you find managing sometimes client expectations versus perhaps the budget they're spending difficult? Is that something you have to sort of balance? Because in general, clients can either be an absolute breeze or, things can become a little bit confusing and complicated if they don't necessarily know what their vision is.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I would say on budget in general, right? And I think these are super important because I think there is I'm going to use the word misconception, but I don't know if that's 100% the right word to use. But we as Whitepaper will take the time and sit and meet with anybody who has been nice enough and kind enough to reach out via phone, email, Instagram, whatever it might be, right? I don't care initially what somebody's budget is. I care about the fact that they think we might be able to help them. Sitting down and giving them the time of day and an hour of my time to be able to help them on their way, even if it's not and ends up working with us, is really, really important. And I think there's a massive differentiation between people that will look at things in a kind of pounds and pence manner all the way from the very beginning, rather than those that really think cleverly enough and big picture enough to think about how treating people is of big, of value.
Yeah.
In terms of the budget, you're absolutely right. I think it's very difficult for a client, and with very good reason, because why should they, to have any idea what putting an event together really will cost up until the point that they're working with whoever it might be to put that budget together. It's very, very difficult. You look at Instagram, you look at Pinterest, you look at a band playing music, you look at a lovely floral display, a cake. You've got no idea how those things have been put together. You've got no idea of the specifics to that particular something. It's only when that budget is put together. And I would argue, therefore, there might be, no matter what the budget is, a slight disconnect between whatever amount there is that can be spent on that event and the ideas and where they began in terms of what your vision might be. And that's for me as a planner, but that also is from the client perspective.
Also priorities. I think people prioritize in very different areas.
Absolutely.
So we're quite lucky in that respect that a lot of people prioritize entertainment. They see it as the driving force, if you want, of an event. Some people will put that on flowers. Some people put it on photography, video. So it really that's and then when
they never put it on planner. I don't think
they should on a good one, but they should.
It's very because it's fun. It's educational. Because
but Aron, this is where I'm really, really I'm passionate about this because I do work with a lot of planners, not just you. We see that there are planners and there are designers and there are producers and excuse me, all different names for people doing similar events or similar jobs rather. But there are very few that really do deliver what it says on the tin. And in terms of creativity, I really think Whitepaper are a world apart, and said that many times to clients and to all sorts of people. And I think just the creativity side of things can set you apart from other planners, aside from how meticulous you are, how detail orientated you are, and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of planners that bring zero creativity. And I question, unless you want just a coordinator, I question why you would then bring somebody who's going to deliver something that's replicating every other person's event. That for me is a big thing.
I'm going to wind
nightmare,
back because when I first met Aron in 2015, I went to Aron. The client didn't want to go specifically with some other planners that I suggested, and I'd never heard of Aron, but I'd come across him. We sat down, we had coffee, and what got me
here actually downstairs,
just down the road. Just what got me straight away
was
with
the
Aron
man jewellery.
Was the man jewellery, the weird haircuts, the Obi-Wan Kenobi scarf, and
it
then,
was also different years ago.
It was his honesty to be transparent in how he does things. And one of the things we talked about on that day, and I remember it clearly, was, we come from a creative background. So we want to create films. We want to make films that work really well, films inside the events as well. And it's all about working with people that can have the clients to make these creative events. And we sat there and we looked at event planners who just roll out the same thing week in, week out. But I'll tell you now, 6 years on, what I appreciate from that conversation is I understand how difficult it is to roll out parties week after week after week. And I do understand there's a box that those people fit in. It's probably by budget.
Absolutely.
Because it's a budget and they go, here we go, here's a package disco with a package lighting, you get your DJ, you've got your novelties, and off you go, and you'll have a great time. And then when you step up, and we've always discussed, sometimes it's not about just the budget. Creativity comes in many forms, whether it's sourcing and finding the little bobbly footballers' heads or the Lego pieces or whatever it's going to be to stand the events apart. But I think a lot of the creativity, there's slots for everybody within the marketplace.
For sure.
But I do appreciate that not everybody is a planner.
No, but that's super important to say. I don't like the idea. I was referencing it before. I don't like the idea of people thinking we only work within a certain budget. I don't like the idea of people thinking that they don't want to call us because they're almost scared to call us. I mean, it's a people.
I think we all
business.
suffer from that.
No, but I think if you treat people the right way, and again, maybe it's well, I'll never be retiring to a beach in Mauritius, but that's you have to treat people in the right way. It shouldn't matter that yes, we are lucky enough to work within certain budgets. Okay, the people who go to a restaurant and get an all-in price for an event and love it, and they've got think it's amazing. That's brilliant. And I'm the first person to
and that's us as clients, by the way.
Yeah, but exactly. I tell you, the worst thing in the world is doing your own event when you're working in a world. And I've done two. You're doing one. I mean, it's mad. Yeah. But I think it goes back to the mindset of you, the company, how you treat people, how you make them feel. And understanding that this is the first event that these clients might be putting together after their own wedding that they probably didn't have much to do themselves. Right? They've got no idea. So why would they know that going to you versus somebody else is going to be either more expensive or what you can bring? It's educational. It's my job to try and explain that.
People are shocked quite often. We find it funny in just internally in the office that both ways. We'll do an event. We did an event a couple of weeks ago, and a guest in the crowd just came up to me, said, "How much is this, mate?" Literally like that. He just looked at the band, looked at the stage, looked at what we were doing, goes, "How much is this? This has got, what is this, like 50, 60K? And I looked at him and I just laughed and I thought to myself, I wish, maybe I'll bring him in, he'll be a great salesman. But it's a perception. Whereas somebody else might look at exactly the same product on the night and do what they think is the Jewish maths and count how many people there are on stage and go, 500 quid a person and this band should be X amount. Yeah. And I think it really comes back to what Aron was saying, what you were saying, Gavin, as well, that it's people's preconceived ideas with fair enough. They just, they've got no experience in it. They may not have done an event before. So they're just going, it's like me guessing how much a coat is in Savile Row without having any experience.
Two things actually to describe. One is, it was put to me once that what we do, it's like opening night in the theatre with a cast of thousands and zero rehearsals.
Yeah.
That is what we do. And if I was trying to educate a client
100%.
in terms of big picture, why working with a planner, whoever it is, if it's not me, it doesn't matter, right? Somebody, is because you're almost, in some ways, paying for the insurance in terms of having somebody with enough experience and knows what they're doing above everything else for the
and you got one shot
what
at
might
it.
happen. Yeah, you have one shot at it.
You got one shot,
so if you can, and if you're lucky enough to be in a position, whichever level of planner it may be, why would you not want some help? Never mind just simply being able to enjoy the planning process. I mean, so you're not stressed.
For me, that should have been, this always should be one of the most enjoyable parts. But I know a lot of clients do find it very, very stressful as well.
Yeah. Well, because
the journey.
Taking weddings is a good example, okay? Bride and groom, they're engaged. It might be a year away. It doesn't matter what it is, right? we are 90% of the people that you and I, probably Jeremy, are both, or all of us are working with, time poor, right? So in part, one of the reasons they may need a planner or need some help of any kind is because they don't have the time themselves.
I'm popping up a little wedding that we
magic.
worked together.
Little wedding. What do they do? Therefore, they try and cram everything into a weekend. The very suppliers they want to speak to are busy at the weekend.
Yeah.
And then before they know it, 3 months has passed by and they're super stressed. So
they also don't forget. There's a lot of people who are non-professionals who give advice.
Yes,
freely give advice, right? And people listen, and without any merit. And
that's very,
that doesn't
very
help.
hard. Yeah,
doesn't help.
When we were talking about sort of the idea and the idea of budgets, just to give you an example of what happened to me recently, and I work inside the industry, I had a client who phoned and said, we'd like to make a pre-wedding film. We've got a dilemma, a scenario, a problem. We can't have the entrance we want because the venue doesn't allow us to have it. It was for a sort of a Persian wedding. Okay. And we came up with a concept for a film and preferred suppliers in the venue. The client asked me, how much did I think screens would cost? 70-inch TVs, maybe 6 of them around the room. And I'm not in production. Yeah. And I took a guess and I went, I don't know, I'm going to guess £4,000 or £5,000. I figured in my head that felt like a good number. Yeah. And then I had to ring the production company, who's not someone we work with every day, and I got a quote back of £16,000. The film to make was £2,000. Yeah. And I got a quote back of £16,000. And I'm thinking to myself, I could just go to clients must think that as well. Yeah. I can just go to Costco, buy some TVs. Yeah. Where does someone pick a figure of £16,000? Yeah. And that's where I think clients struggle somewhere on the line.
Right. So there's 2 points on that. One is, again, from a budgetary perspective, we're super careful when we provide our budgets to our clients to be as detailed as we possibly can. We factor in contingencies to allow for things, but I will not create a budget that creates a bottom line just to win the piece of business.
Yeah, well, we
There's
had that
no
point
point
with
in
joint
that.
clients. Remember? We
Didn't
one of the worst because they weren't realistic.
Yeah. One of the worst things you can do is do that. Is have to go create a situation. I don't know why you'd want to create a situation for yourself where the client says, "But you told me," or where you do something to win the piece of business and then think your client's going to be in any way happy 6 months later when you've done your homework, which you should have done before, and the price is 3 times as much.
Well, the other thing is as well, if you're so close to the line, and then invariably there are things that crop up. There are just things that people don't think about before, and then suddenly if you're that close to your line of budget and you're 2 months out and something pops up that you want or that's unexpected, you just don't have that budget there.
Well, you get the 2 weeks before, don't you?
You get the
FA fortnight.
Yeah,
FA fortnight.
That's the worst nightmare.
It's an absolute nightmare.
Well, a lot of people use that. A lot of suppliers use that to their benefit because they know that people will fall for that, but it's not nice. It's not cool. It's not
Moving on, just back to your stuff for a second, Jeremy. Yeah. You also run a second unit. It was mainly aimed at the bar and bat mitzvah market.
Correct.
I know we shot a promo for you a little while ago.
10, yeah.
I especially love it. I know we shot this quite a few years ago, but
it's still fresh, Jeremy.
It is very fresh. Tell me about Avenue 10. How's that going these days?
It's cool. It's actually good. It's interesting. We originally started Avenue 10. 2 reasons. Number one, we wanted a smaller configuration, but looking at this video, there's about 1,000 people on stage there, but we're not very good at doing small. But we started it because we felt the band is great, but it's a real luxurious feel. It's a big live band, and it was more suitable for weddings. There are people that book Muzika, the band, for bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, but it's a little bit more suited for weddings or gala dinners. So we created this as a kind of young, dynamic, clubby type of feel. You can see in the video with dancers, and it's great. It's great. What happened was we didn't like anything. You develop a product and you sometimes run out of time to market it. So it grew organically. As much as it was seen at events, but today it's busy. Yeah, it's a busy.
I think it was in that format. It was one of the first to do it in that way.
Yeah,
I think DJ Live didn't really exist. You had your DJ plus a percussion saxophonist. You didn't really have it. And again, it goes back there. Even today, there is DJ Lives, and then there's a polished version, which you can still see the essence of the whole Muzika brand within Avenue 10. But
well, DJ Live, really, for me, it's funny. It's like there are 2 terms in the music world that I think are just thrown about and no one really knows what they are. One is ShowBand and one is DJ Live. And DJ Live is probably the most overused because, quite frankly, anybody who's a DJ and adds a live part is then a DJ Live.
It feels like it's to fill a stage as well, in a very nice way.
It's
visually to fill a stage. Personally speaking, for me, I love I love live music and I love DJs.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just don't like a violinist
So
playing
we
over
are
a
very,
track.
absolutely right, and we're very, very careful how we mix the two, because I think you particularly coming from the video editing world, you will see, because there's no way of masking it, that maybe something that works on a dance floor that has energy on the evening, when you come to edit it and you hear electric violin in the wrong key or saxophonist playing in the wrong key because they have no idea, because it's a complete busk and they don't even know sometimes who the DJ is. It's a car crash, for want of a better word, to edit.
Moving on to creativity, you both of you are two of the most creative people, certainly in the industry. There are plenty of others who will appear throughout the seasons because that's what we're about, is about the creativity. But people will always ask me, and Aron, you're very well known as being apparently the creative go-to person. I mean, it's probably, I would say, the last 6 years for you has been a massive curve of an uplift. You now compete with the very big planners across Europe. You're doing international jobs. But how do you come up with your clients with something extraordinary and something different? We're going to show some images as well.
Okay, so this one's a very interesting one. So this one here is
Claridge's again.
This was Claridge's again. This whole event was based around the background image you can see there is real wallpaper that we used, which was our client's daughter had that wallpaper in her room. From that single image grew the idea that we would create the Beverly Hills Hotel look, given the wallpaper, which then tied into the rest of
complete
of the
with dance
design.
Floor swimming pool.
Complete with dance floor swimming pool, complete with working awning over the bar that you can see on the right-hand side there. Neon sign on the left. And
swans in the pool.
Swans in the
Hold
pool.
on a second.
Obviously.
The stairs. You know, these stairs to get into the swimming pool?
Cool,
so
cool.
from our perspective, it can be the smallest, tiniest morsel of an idea. And actually that same wallpaper we used on our invites.
Yeah.
So we had the guy that did our invitations, a great guy called Darren from Invitation London. He did the invitations and we went to B&Q where we found the wallpaper. Took the wallpaper, we had it sized, and on the back of the invite was stuck the wallpaper. Yeah. We then carried that through, as you can see, in various elements of the design, and that is how the general creativity grew. From our standpoint, be it walking down the street and looking at Selfridges windows, be it simply gazing up and seeing a particular something in the sky, or just on a desk. Me personally, it's just an idea that either pops into my head or I pull out a kernel.
You was doodling in school. I remember you doodling in school.
Snoopy's and Fido Dido was my thing.
But I remember that.
Up kid.
But and this was an event again for the same family that we just saw, the Ibiza wedding that we just did.
Jit Fest.
So this was a festival style event that we did. Again, this was as much about just generally being colourful and coming up with some that festival in the back garden, which ultimately is what the event was, kind of feel to things. And going back to another point that you said, sometimes this is considered a big design creative element, right? How a stage set and dance floor might look. But actually some of the things that we do, some of the most creative ideas are the smallest, and those that took time to think about but didn't necessarily cost the most amount of money. You referenced Lego once. Earlier, we did an event where it was an event themed around games. The
Twister, and
we had a Twister dance floor. We had Scrabble name places, which we literally went online, bought thousands of Scrabble pieces to be able to make up the letters and the names that we needed. And the Lego pieces, I went to the Lego store in Leicester Square. Bought a Lego figure, figured out how big it needed to be that it could stand on, and what the angle would be for the escort card to be leaning against it, and then went out and bought them and sat for 2 Saturday afternoons in my house piecing together 250 Lego people.
But I've seen you do that.
But I mean, that's just what we.
What about the hanging of the paper? Swans?
Okay, so we did. I don't know, where if it will come up, but we do. We spent again for a Japanese themed event. This is how I think, right? I'll find an image and I'll either figure a way that we can do it or a way I think we can do it. That was 3,000 origami butterflies in however many different shades of pink and white that you as a guest would never have seen by the time you came into the room given the lighting. And we spent from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till about 3 o'clock the following day, through the night at the Mayfair Hotel, together with the production team.
I remember seeing you sitting there
literally
doing
hanging
them all.
them, because for me it wasn't just about doing it. It was what angle were they going to be at, where was it going to finish, how over the dance floor was it going to be, never mind what the height would be when the bat mitzvah girl was going to be lifted on her chair and would her head hit these butterflies. But that is what makes
this comes back to
different.
I'm sorry to jump in for a second. I think this, just listening to that comes back to dedication.
Correct.
Because when I think about you have to want to be able to do that. You have to want to do that. You have to have the time to do that, the inclination, the effort. And we have a similar, there is a synergy there, because I see that when we are doing set lists for a client, we can very easily do the same thing as we did the previous week, very easily. And I would say that the overwhelming majority of bands do that. But when we take the time to really dig deep and ask people, right, when you were away with your mates last year, what was the song that got you all going? And when we see that we pull them onto the stage with that song, even though we've had to learn the song, write the arrangement, rehearse the song, and we could easily get away with not doing any of that, puts us in another league.
It's funny because
I think Aaron's got the same dedication.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I speak to clients,
Going to come back to that one, Jeremy.
No, because I'm going to kind of add to that. When I speak to clients who tell me from one week to the next, and I know these are people that have been at each other's events, that they were there with Muzika 1 week.
Sorry,
to the
I'm
next.
just referencing some of Jeremy's events as well while we go through.
The way they word it is as if it's like that you've done it for the first time, if that makes sense. Because it would be very easy.
Often we have.
But because that's the point. It'd be very easy to say that to clients that went to the same Muzika thing 2 weeks in a row that it just felt the same. But they very rarely, if at all, do I ever get that. It's almost as if it's the first time they've ever seen them.
We have to be honest, we drive our people, our team, our musicians, our singers nuts. We drive them beyond nuts. We treat everybody as a family, and we try to just pay them better than anybody else.
I love this setup that's on the screen now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been tried to be copied
annoying
many
setup
times.
Was well before my time in terms of thinking something that is one of those I look at.
Yeah,
and think, wow.
It reminds me of the Brady Bunch.
I'll tell you where I got it from. Somebody said it reminded them of Amsterdam windows, but everybody's got a different look. Depends who you're talking to. I actually saw a clip of a David Guetta stage in, I want to say it was in France. I think it was in France. It was some big festival. It was about 7 or 8 years ago. And I thought it was it wasn't exactly like that. So obviously I had to adapt it, and musicians and stuff. And when we did it, I remember very clearly the first time we did it, every person that walked into the ballroom, they just stopped, their jaws dropped, their phones came out, and they just shot it because they've never seen anything like it. Since then, it's been copied a couple of times.
What's the saying? Copied? I can't remember what the saying is.
Well, it's a compliment, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I used to get upset by
it.
that now.
That's the job we did together, Jeremy, didn't we?
Yeah, that was a job in Billingsgate.
Yeah.
Always great to work there because it's just, it's so big. This was a job at the Dorchester Hotel. You can see, look, just by doing staging that has steps, they were fake steps. They were not real, by the way. You couldn't, as in they were real, but you couldn't walk up them. They weren't structural. But it just gives a depth. It gives 3D. It's a wow. We try to just create a little bit of theatre or bring in a little bit of theatre.
One of the criticisms I hear of bands, and not of Muzika, and which is why I'm going to
there are others for Muzika.
Well, I'm sure there are. But one of the things I hear, and I hear it a lot, the band never played the songs we requested. Okay, I gave the band a list. They didn't play them. I know you guys work really hard to make sure if there's a song, an opening dance, it's polished, it's rehearsed. Just talk to me about that sort of element.
So first of all, as I just sort of touched on it before, it's hard work. It's just nothing. There's another way of looking at it. It's hard work to keep adding every single week, minimum 5-6 songs, which is what we do. Therefore, we've got thousands of songs in different genres. I also do it for selfish reasons. I think, over the years, we've learned Russian music, Greek music, Indian music, German, Italian, and so on and so forth, because it just gives us the opportunity to work in different markets. But it is very hard to do it. Therefore, I think a lot of people just jump on the bandwagon of saying, no, it won't work. Leave it to us, or all those kind of cliches. And there is an element, of course, we believe we know better than the client in terms of what works on a dance floor. But one thing I always give to the clients, they know their crowd better than I do. So if they say to me, listen, my crowd are going to go nuts for 70s, Motown, funk, soul, disco kind of vibe, I've got no reason to believe that that's not true. So therefore, when we create set lists, we will create set lists around that. But it's another thing if it doesn't work on the night. We have to be able to adapt, and and that's what any good band will do. But just to not listen which a lot of bands unfortunately are guilty of. I think it's a laziness. I think it's a laziness, or they don't have enough. They don't have enough quality to be able to do.
The biggest compliment I hear from Muzika, obviously, about the quality is your interaction with the audience. The connection with the audience is really, it's palpable when we're at an event you're doing.
Because I just don't believe these things should be, there are times where people want a big show, and then we can turn that on. A big stage show, and you can add dancers and you can have 20 musicians on stage, and it's very nice. But there's something that when you have a level of interaction, and it can't be forced. I think for me, I've got certain singers that are great at it, certain other singers that are great vocalists but not as strong on the interaction. It's about it feeling naturally. But I think when you do interact and guests enjoy the experience and they feel involved, it takes you to another level.
Guests are super key.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to ask me, maybe you are, but the guests in the room, it could be Muzika, it could be any band. If they're not good, if the guests aren't in the mood or don't have it, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know it's one of the reasons why bands don't like having clients come down and see them on a night. It's not for any other reason, in part based on it. If the crowd's not there and they're not dancing, it reflects negatively on the band. But it is for sure the crowd drives the event.
But just on that point with the crowd, there's a lot of bands, and I know this for fact because I speak to musicians and singers that perform in other bands, and they tell me that a lot of bands, their philosophy is, you've seen what we do, you may have seen us live, you may have seen a video of us, you've seen our repertoire. We turn up, we do that. If people don't dance, it's not our responsibility. We've done what we've been contracted and paid to do. We can't guarantee a full dance floor. Now the thing is, our philosophy is completely different. That's a very foreign concept for me. For me, the dance floor is key, and we will do everything within our, within reason to actually make sure that the dance floor is full, because otherwise I just feel that we have failed. And I think a lot of bands don't feel they failed because they will just say, but it was a crap crowd.
Yeah. And that's why I think the synergy is actually, I think between all three
So
of
I was just going to say, right,
we always
so one of the
are thinking about client.
And that's the thing. But and then touching on that in an event setup, that synergy exists because we might know that the timings we've put together dictate that at a certain time we're meant to be doing something, whatever that is, right? I need to make sure that you're where you need to be. I need to make sure that the caterers are ready. I need to make sure that the guy making the announcements is ready to go, and that the person who's going to be introducing the next speech is setting up, right? But I also need to know that if the crowd are having an amazing time, that I've created the flexibility to let the band do what they do well. The flip side is I might need them because I've been told in I was going to say in my ear, but walking around with one of those things is my worst nightmare. But I know the kitchen, for whatever reason, needs 15 extra minutes. I know that I can, and again, it's not the case with every single band, but I can go and I can say to Jeremy, listen, I need another 15 minutes. You just got to turn it on. And I know that they are not working from a set list, which dictates that they're going to have to finish at a certain point because they simply don't have any more.
It's flexibility.
And that's the same. And going, that planning world, that is one of those other things that we would be in terms of on the day, and what looks like a simple timing list. I tell clients, don't even, it's written on a piece of paper, forget about it, because once you get going, any number of variables can change things, and that's why working as a team is just the most important element.
The passion of wanting, and I think all three of us here do share that, the passion to deliver a memorable party, which is energy, which is full of energy and it's highly charged, I think it's why we do this. There are other professions to go into.
1,000,000%.
And I think if you don't have that, and there are people, unfortunately, in the industry, like in any industry, that don't have that. But you can't really fake it. So for me, if I leave, Grosvenor House at midnight and I'm driving home, first thing I'm doing is I'm on the phone to my band leader and we're analysing the hell out of the whole job, for good and for bad. And we take it very, very personally. If it's not a good party, rather than just saying, oh, it was just a weak crowd, we just punish ourselves about why. Why didn't it work?
If there's anything oh my God, you don't want to come near me for days. If I think in any way
because you
that
take
I've
it personally,
disappointed or that the client may come away and it not have met their... And that's the reason, sorry.
Go on.
And it go all the way back to the first event that we were talking about before. I don't get excited at the end of an event, right? Thinking...
I have noticed that.
It's very simple. The bar is extremely high. The baseline for the success of that event is that it went unbelievably because of all of the work that every single person, not just us, the client themselves, never mind all the other suppliers that have put in to make it a success. So, it just had to go.
Yeah.
There's no other chance.
And when your job is done and you're analysing on the way home, we start our work.
Correct.
And it
I was
doesn't
gonna
matter
say,
how
yeah.
good
Yeah.
or bad the party was for many different reasons. Our job is to make it look
$1 million.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
yeah.
And there are many times.
I was going to ask you how you do that when you've had a weak party.
Well,
fortunately, I think all three of us, and we are fortunate in this, we work very often with great crowds.
Absolutely,
and there's lots of love in the room.
100%.
And it works. But what do you do when...
There are moments. So we have a strategy for that, which is that when we're filming and we're filming around a dance floor, and let's say the dance floor's not so busy at a party, we film much tighter shots so we can get round the fact.
Yeah.
When we look at the edit, we make sure that the edit has energy and fast pace, and that picks it up because nothing goes out until it's perfect.
Yeah.
You cannot be sloppy. And also, I kind of feel that over the years, even through COVID, actually, what we came to realize when COVID happens and the event industry shut down, and by the way, 1 week after shutting down, we had finished all our work because we are always on time. We're very fast delivery.
Yeah.
So with that, we sat there thinking, God, the wheel had stopped.
What
and
happens
actually,
now?
what happened is we realized that we were a factory for delivering really quickly, and we took a step back from that. And now when I watch what's going on amongst sort of the event world, and people are filming 3 times a week and they can't get films out, and clients, it still doesn't happen to us because we're just a little bit more selective over the work we do. We still want to deliver top end to the client in terms of delivery of their film. But actually, this isn't about me anyway.
No, but just going back to that,
it's interesting. It is interesting for us.
touching on that
I'll
synergy
tell you one
point.
scenario which falls into your world, and I don't mind saying it.
Yeah.
We talk about planners who plan and planners who turn up. We did a job last week, and at this job, for us, if I am, there's a Jewish dancing and it goes into a speech, you guys know full well that you will wait till someone gives a nod that the lead cameraman is ready because he probably had to change lens. The Jewish dancing stopped, and in half a second, someone was on stage, started the speech. We are mid-grabbing cameras.
Schoolboy errors.
No communication with the event planner. Not necessarily their fault. Should that?
No,
be
but
made
it's to the
clear?
detriment of
It
your.
is- there is no
your
detail in that.
program.
I want to get onto a couple of other bits and pieces because time really flies by.
Yeah.
For everybody watching and listening across the podcast channels, top 3 tips for anybody planning an event. Top 3 tips for you guys to your clients. That could be managing budgets. That could be first steps.
Wow.
What would it be?
Wow, over to you,
You'd think we'd know this one, right?
Yeah.
Top 3.
I would say number 1, know your crowd, because I'm seeing it now. I'm planning my daughter's bat mitzvah, and when I make any decision, be it on the formality, seated versus stand up, where I do it, if it's far away, if it's the people I'm going to use, I've always got at the back of my mind, I know what my mates are like. I know who's a big dance animal, who isn't. I know how many elderly people are coming. I think knowing your crowd, a lot of people don't think about it, so they just make decisions based on what they want or what they think is right for the party, but without thinking that you've got 150 or 200 or however many people that you're deciding
And
for.
funny enough, that's where we all think about the crowd and the party, don't
Correct.
we? Not about.
But I think a lot of clients don't think about that naturally.
Yeah.
If you're a client who is lucky enough to work with a planner, and I'll assume that that's kind of the lead there, I think you have to. I want to say relax is one of my top tips. If you are lucky enough to be working with a planner, then you're employing that person to help you along that journey.
Yeah.
Stressing out is not going to help you at all. And if that planner is a good planner, they'll be guiding you about what needs to be done at what time. So one of my top tips would be, if you're at that point where you've decided that's what you want to do, like relax.
What about a tip on budgets? Because people don't even know where to start.
Spend big, go big, or
Great,
go home.
that's really
Do you think it's
helpful,
really
Jess.
important for a client to go in with a number to start with so they know where they're
I
comfortable?
don't. Well, you say yes, but I don't know that they would know what that number is.
Yeah.
No,
That's the problem.
No,
I tell you.
they won't know what things cost.
Yeah.
This is where there's a bit of a conflict,
they may know
because
what they
I
want to
understand where
spend.
Aron's coming from. Right, but you might have have a global figure where you go, listen, I'm chucking this party. I can't chuck more than 50k at it, for example, right?
Yeah.
You sort of know that. Then it comes to people with Aron's talent to be able to say, okay, well, you've got 50,000 and you want to do, I don't know, a Friday night and a lunch and a Sunday, you might say, well, we're not going to do 3 events, you're going to do 2.
Yeah.
Or this is his area
it's
of
more
expertise.
the harsh nature of the world that we are in right now is that if you take our average 180 to 200 people, if you take a West End hotel, because, and again, there are many venues.
Yeah,
I'm
you're talking about the level that we're working at.
and you're taking a kosher caterer.
Yep.
Okay, just because. Though what I call those kind of the fixed costs of those kind of top 5 elements, catering, venue. It's not about starting out, but you will hit a certain number you will hit a certain number on that big budget that hasn't even accounted for what the room might look like, the hoodies you want to provide your kids with,
But doesn't that link in exactly what I'm saying? Is you're going to have to at some point, if you've got this large budget or small budget, it doesn't matter. You've got a budget in mind. At a certain point, you're going to need to look at it and go, where are my priorities?
Asset allocation.
Yeah, so
exactly
correct. So priorities
exactly.
is a very good. Priorities is another good one, and it sounds silly maybe, but get that guest list written down. Work out how many people, because the more information you can provide, us with,
a lot of people
the more
don't
honest
do
we
that.
can be. I'm not going to tell you can do it for a certain amount, as I said to you before, just to secure the piece of business. But I can absolutely tell you that if you tell me that you've got 200 people and you want to do it kosher catered and you want to be doing it in the West End, doing it for 50 grand it's just not going to happen. That's ridiculous.
We both had exactly that with that client, with a client that thought they would have A, B, C, and D over a whole weekend with a huge number of guests. And when you just did the basic maths on the back of a fag packet, it just didn't work out.
And it's mad. I have to turn around to a client, a potential client, and say that £100,000, based on the information you've provided me with, is not going to be enough for your event. How ridiculous is that?
But it's very important to say it's not enough in the top end of the market.
Yes, fair enough. Okay, and I'm not trying to.
Interestingly, we quite often run a giveaway. We love doing it. We give away free filming for a bar and bat mitzvah. Jeremy, you didn't enter because I would have happily, obviously, thrown your name into the ring. But we give one away, and very nice. It does leads, obviously, to people calling us, contacting us. And we had a lovely client rang us up. We'll always take the meetings because people just assume you're too expensive. Yeah. But we ran down, and she told me that she had a budget. She wanted to make a music video. Yeah. Okay, music videos for us start around £4,000 to £5,000, and she said she had a budget of £30,000. And instantly I said, how important is this music video? Because it's way out of kilter with your entire budget. Now, I can probably come up with an idea that could fit in, but let's just start with, and I'm not a party planner, but what's your food cost going to be? And by the way, that's gone up significantly. Yeah,
massively.
What's your production cost, your hire? And really, what do you have? Because the last thing you should be thinking about now is a music video. Maybe we could just do a song for you.
Okay, so that's super important, because whilst not trying to prevent you getting your business, but what people don't think about is the video, which is their starting point, which they want to do, then means we need a screen. That screen has to be a certain size to be able to show the video. Once you've got the screen, it needs more content because you're not getting a big screen 100%. For the sake of your 2-minute video. Then we need to think about, where's the DJ going to go so he's not standing in front of your screen. I mean, there are any number of connotations that right at the beginning or through the client's mindset of what they think they want to do. And again, this goes back to the fact that they may have been to loads and loads of events, and now it is their turn to do their event.
Absolutely.
So, you can't expect them to know everything. Now's their turn to really have their eyes open.
It's funny when I go in and people invite us to come in and talk about maybe doing a music video or a speech replacement or something. The first thing I do is say, right, before we start, this is what, roughly speaking, that's going to cost you. But by the way, your screen will probably, if you're having a big LED, could cost you 7-8 grand. You're going to need additional content. You could end up spending with us, 10, 15, 20. Yeah. You've got to look at your budget because we can do other things that don't involve that. It's not just about, the making the content. Yeah. But is there one rule you live by in your businesses?
From our perspective, it's not a rule necessarily. We put the client first. End of story. I do not care. You've done this. I've done this. I will put my hand in my pocket if it means being able to sort something. Not because anybody did anything wrong, but if it's going to. The client may not even know, to be fair. We've had that instance before. We had a gift provided by the kids for the bar mitzvah boy. It went missing. Right, okay, it goes missing. Doesn't matter what. I have no idea to this day why it was. Or can you tell me, ask the client, what was it? Tell me about it. Within 24 hours, it had magically appeared. Yeah. Because just do it. Yeah. If you do not treat the client right in the events world, you're an idiot, number one. Number two, you just will not, you're done. So for us, I don't care about I care. Sorry. If in the order of importance, that the way that the client is treated is absolutely key, and it should begin and end there.
It's a people's business. So I think for us, I would say we just try to exceed expectation every single time, because to meet expectation is nice, but when you exceed it and you get letters and calls afterwards saying, we knew you were going to be good, but we had no idea that the party was going to be like that. I think for myself or for Aron, that's what it's all about.
For me, if I'm lucky, the only time I ever get nervous, is when people are going to walk in and see the room for the first time.
Of course.
If they walk in and they burst into tears, usually I know I'm all right. Yeah. Usually it's the good tears. But it's that.
I filmed that many times.
Because we have a situation where people genuinely, from that perspective
It's
side
an
of what we do,
it's
they
an
have
amazing
no,
moment.
no, but they have no idea.
I know.
I've shown them mood boards. They've seen CGIs. You don't get it. So that is that first point of validation in terms of them understanding it, and then I know.
I still
I'm
have,
less
I still
nervous.
genuinely, which is funny to think, even when I think about it now, but I still have moments where I'm nervous at large events. You know, it might be a new market or something, and that 5 minutes just when the whole band on stage before the doors open, I'm just shitting myself that the sound's not going to work or something. And it doesn't matter how many years I've been doing it. And I think the minute I don't care so much anymore or don't think about it, then I'm out.
That's it. I'm
You-
right.
you
I
can't
think-
bluff
I
it.
agree.
I would agree as well.
I'm with that. With
Yeah.
5 minutes to go, we've had situations where
Yeah.
the sound's cut, something's gone. You've got that goes all the way back to what we were saying about
I can't even
surrounding yourself
hear
by
it.
the right team.
Yeah.
You know, what do I do when I've got meant to be calling? I'm literally practically ready to open the door. Something happens. The
Yeah.
band needs something. You're stuck. Something, whatever it might be.
The caterer's stuck
It's-
in a lorry and
it's-
God knows where,
it's
We're coming towards the end of the show today, guys. But before we do, as we will do on every episode of our podcast, we have questions from Instagram. So we
can
put
only
out questions
imagine.
now because
Better be
we've
my
just
brother.
launched. We've got
Wow.
there's none from your brother, don't worry. But let's
My
take a
mum.
little look.
yeah, okay.
So, how competitive is the pricing of events? Are you always up against the same planners? Aaron, I guess that's primarily directed at you.
So people who have no idea how we work and what we charge for our services, I'll either have people who come and they've spoken to somebody at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and then they're super shocked when we explain what we do, how we do it, and therefore trying to justify why we're charging more money. But on a day-to-day basis, yes, we find ourselves up against the same planners. I think over these last few years, I've been very lucky enough to see that it's different planners that I'm up against
Yes.
in that way. Do you know what I mean? And I still get super jealous when
Do
I
you not
see
find
things that I've not
sometimes-
done or I never had a chance of doing, and I think, I really wish I had a chance to do
Do
that.
you not find, because we find this, but I'm sure you do as well, do you find sometimes that you're not up against anybody else? As in, they just want to come to you, they just want to use you. It's just a question of price. If you can make the price right, because we get that quite often.
Yeah, I get that sometimes, which is it's a big compliment when you know that they'd love to. Listen, I've got situations where people would love to work with us. They can't, and I will do my best to guide them in whatever way I can. Partly because
He suggests
hate
that they
thinking
work
that-
a bit harder.
No, but I
you
hate
know,
thinking
maybe
that
take a
the-
second job.
Yeah.
I hate thinking that they know what we do, really want that, and almost need that. I need to be able to help them if I can on how to set them on the right road.
Well, it's interesting
that.
because, and I think we mentioned this before, Jeremy, you mentioned it, sometimes the worst thing is being not called because people turn you down because they think on price.
Yeah.
And I would tell you now, I've done
But
jobs,
you're a victim of your own success.
I've done jobs
Yeah.
over the last where you meet with the client and you think they're the loveliest people and they've got a budget of £1,500 and
Yeah.
you think, well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
can I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. And
to
vice
make
versa.
this
I'll
work?
tell you why. Because
do.
because those people, and I've had it in instances where we unfortunately didn't win a job, and I could have treated or that particular person in a certain way or been dismissive, whatever it might have been. Those people will rock up at your events.
They will.
You
And they'll
never.
recommend
I mean,
you.
I've had some stories of people. I had zero idea these people were connected.
Yeah.
The idea that these people would
You can't
come
make
to one
assumptions.
of our events and
Cannot
feel
make any
horrible
assumptions.
because of how we may have treated them because they weren't able to work with us. I can't deal
At
with
the end
that.
of the day, we're just also I think there's a lot of people in our industry that have very big inflated egos for no reason. And at the end of the day, yes, we're working at a good level. Yes, we're very proud of our work, but we're doing events, we're doing weddings, we're doing parties. We're not curing cancer. You know, so sometimes I think we need to look at ourselves and take a little step back.
Referencing that specific point, it's very competitive, and you should not be fooled by thinking you will get the same service by paying less.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next question. What's the advantage of using a planner with a bigger team? Is there an advantage? Versus, I guess, like a single person.
If somebody said to me if based whether it's funny, well, they probably did a few years ago. If somebody based whether or not they would work with us on whether we had 10 people in the team.
But I think the whole world brings in freelancers, so it's almost a moot point.
We don't.
No, but if you need freelancers for an event,
With that event you showed that we did in Ibiza, that was 2 people.
yeah, that's
Why?
true.
Because if it's done in the I mean, don't get me wrong. Okay, absolutely. I'm not trying to be
No, for
dismissive of the
certain
freelance world.
roles,
Yeah,
yeah.
and there are freelancers who that's how they do it. So no,
Yeah.
I'm being unfair there. I don't believe that having a
You
team
don't
of
need 10
10
people
on an
running
event,
around with clipboards.
yeah,
No,
with clipboards
no,
and headsets
no.
when there's nothing for them to do. If
We've worked with
you've
that,
gone
yeah.
to the detail of planning it in the right way, of course, if you're on site, it's 400 people, it's being taken place across 4 buildings. Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
but
yeah.
everyone has to have a job. If somebody said that we would only hire you, I'm very lucky. If somebody thought that they had to pay me more money because I had 10 people I needed to support and a big office and all of those other overheads, I think now we're lucky enough to be in a position where I can prove the work that we've done. And if I told people that was only done with like one other person, I don't think that should make.
You can see sometimes we see it because again we see all over the place different planners, and sometimes it's just a numbers game. They've just got 12 people with their company T-shirts on, but actually if you go up to each and every person and ask them what their role is there and what they're doing, and if you ask them for a simple thing like any question, they haven't got a clue. So if you want to just look big,
worst thing you could do, it's the same with caterers. Go up to one of those people and ask them a question that they've got no idea about, in the same way as what canapé are you holding,
just frustrating.
They don't know. How annoying.
Let's move on to the next question. What's your favourite event you've ever planned? Jeremy, let's start with you on that. Maybe a performance.
That's a good question. That is a good, because there are so many. There isn't one that just sticks out. I have to be honest. There isn't one that actually just stands out as the event. I've just enjoyed so many of them for different reasons. I think the first few big international events that we did. There you go. Because it was fun. Because
you can't be Switzerland in this. You can't sit on the fence.
No, I won't put Switzerland in. But I think the first one we did in Israel, actually, for me, stands out because we do quite a number there every year. And Israel's a very special place for me. My mother lives there. I've grown up going there. Like Aron has as well. And to actually think that somebody valued our band good enough to be able to take to Israel that has their own bands there. Yeah, it was special.
And Aron, for you?
Again, it's hard to pinpoint one. I think those events that I'm able to build a proper relationship with the client where they want to know when we're popping around for a cup of coffee, or that cake that they made is like ready for us, and we can literally just rock up at any time for nothing other than to shoot the breeze. So for me, I think of it in those regards. Again, if I highlight back to the event that you showed, I think that was a favourite because it was the first time we were able to properly show our creativity, and that launched us in that way. But yeah, it's hard to pinpoint.
Beautiful. Okay. Would you say there are any tiers of event planners? And if so, what are they measured by?
There are definitely tiers, for sure.
Would you say it's measured by budget? Or would you say it's measured by creativity that goes with the budget?
Budget for sure. But actually, you can find people who are super, super organised but aren't good with people, and then forget it. You're doomed from the off. So I think the tiers, I would say, overlap. But yes,
I think event planners are probably judged by the kind of events. And today, where everything's on Instagram, everything's photos,
that's also
digital.
But that's dangerous as well.
But it answers the questions because it says, would you say there are tiers of event planners? I think there are. I don't think they're necessarily right, and I don't think the criteria for putting one over the other is necessarily right. But I think there are definitely tiers. There's perceived tiers. Yes.
I would say that some are, and listen, you guys at the very pinnacle of the events. Well, there's not many people above you unless they're globally traveling the world week in, week out. But there are certainly people that just specifically do local and don't generally tend to get into the big West End venues.
Yeah, and they can do very well.
Yeah, so there's definitely a tier. Let's have a look at the next one. Some planners charge a fee. Some take commissions from suppliers. Do some do both?
Ooh,
that's a tricky
one. $1 million question.
We literally said we only had a few minutes. So yes,
and yes.
I think the main element where that's concerned is making sure that the person you're working with is telling you.
It's all about transparency, isn't it? That's the bottom line. One of the things about events is it's always been thrown that people are not necessarily transparent about the way things are done. And I think that's very important.
I'll tell you what's very difficult nowadays.
As long as you set your stall out.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't exist however many years ago. But now, going back to the whole educational element, you've got clients that go online and or will pick up the phone to the supplier. I mean, it's.
Oh, I spoke to another planner about this the other day, and he told me I can't make money anymore. And I said to him, "What do you mean you can't make money?" Well, you know who he is as well, so we won't mention names, obviously. But he said, "Look, 20 years ago, somebody would come to me for a birthday party, and I would be able to source the chairs, the balloons, the tablecloths, the DJ, the everything, basically, and there was no Google." There was no, maybe I'm going back a bit more than 20 years, but you know where I'm getting to. And people could therefore mark up everything. Today you can't, because if you say a chair is £4, well, that person will go online and see.
It might not be like for like. There's an education.
You might
there's
say,
an element there.
Ownership of it. You might say, and there's a value to that, of course.
Well, that's
it's a big issue I have right now with caterers.
I have heard that with caterers and some other planners where they say, "Well, sorry, you booked all that stuff.
Don't
you're in charge."
And who's wrong and who's right?
I mean, it's a difficult one. But anyway, let's move on from that. I guess it's about transparency. Would you rather at a bar mitzvah A band or a DJ?
Me as a
Both.
punter.
Me as a punter, I'm DJ.
I take DJ.
I'm DJ. Jeremy? Horses for courses, maybe.
Yeah, I think there are certain things that a band can do that a DJ can't, and vice versa.
Yeah. Switzerland, you are.
Switzerland, that's me.
What's the largest band you've ever put on, Jeremy?
40-piece.
40-piece. Where was that?
Lithuania,
Wow.
of all places. Yeah.
That 40 flights, 40 hotels.
I once looked.
40
I
meals,
once looked.
3
I know I'm not
wow.
not bad, but I once looked into booking the whole London Symphony Orchestra for an event.
Oh, wow.
Did you?
It's not that expensive, let me just tell you.
Yeah, but what happens often is when you have entire sections, so you might have a string section of just 15 strings, before you've even started, and then a horn section, so you've got 5 saxophonists and 4 trumpets and trombones, etc.
All
So
of a sudden,
before
just
you've even spoken
it
about
grows and
It
grows.
wasn't Russian, it was Lithuanian.
In general, do brides' parents still pay for weddings? I have no idea. I'm asked that quite a lot, actually. Funny enough.
So there's sometimes it goes. There's a mix. Sometimes one set of the families may cover photography, videography, floral.
Sounds like BQ
Old
watches.
school.
Sounds like
Yeah,
BQ
old
watches
school.
is a bit nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a wedding coming up.
Congratulations.
There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Different family circumstances.
Yeah. How much do DJs charge?
You're asking.
I think
Ooh, I don't know.
I would say, and I'm really having a little bit of a guess here,
Yeah.
I would say from £500.
Oh, I was going to say from 750.
Yeah,
I would be
from
having
No, I think
850,
they're-
my friends. I would suggest.
Oh, really?
Oh, Jeremy,
Okay.
Yeah.
sorry.
I
Aaron?
obviously know some cheaper ones.
Yeah, clearly.
I would say they range for anywhere from 850 to 3.5 grand. Well, by the time you're in that, you're into the kind of DJ that will come and do you a 45-minute set.
I think if
Yeah.
you're
Rather
asking
than-
about DJs on our scene, then I would say, yeah, even less than 1,000 is hard to get. If you're asking me what DJs in a small party in a pub kind of situation, there are definitely
Yeah, you
DJs
can
for
find
3,
it. Yeah,
4,
so
500
God bless
quid.
Tony Perry. He must have gone up by now. He's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a world
Oh,
famous
yes,
superstar.
yeah.
If we can get
out
we book
guitar.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the last
Super
question
duper.
we have here is: what is the best and worst part about being an event planner? Aaron.
It can be very, very draining. In our case, the amount of effort that we put into it, you literally come away on a Monday and the guys just can't move. Forget it. It's absolutely knackering. The flip side to that is that is like I said before, the underestimation, being underestimated is actually quite. I don't like that. That winds me up a little bit.
Okay.
But it's very time consuming. You give your heart and your soul if you're doing it in the right way. And so that's the best bit because you see the event and you think it's amazing. And then it's just the worst bit in terms of being knackered at the end of it.
Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you both with me today. I've thoroughly enjoyed. We could have gone on for
Thank you.
hours.
Yeah,
Literally.
you can.
I didn't even cover half the questions I had,
Oh.
to be honest with you, but you were absolute superstars. Legends, the pair of you.
Thank you very much.
Legends in our own minds.
If you've enjoyed today's
Cheers,
show,
Gavin.
please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be growing and we can only grow with your input. So if you have any questions you'd like asked of future guests, please do email them to info@gavsymedia.com or drop us a DM and we'll see you on the next one. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
have. Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that? The expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
Everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.